The Pittsburgh Steelers have made multiple moves to their roster within the last few days, from signing players to the practice squad, to placing players on injured reserve, to also elevating players to the main roster. So, before I get more into it, make sure you subscribe to the channel, turn notifications for everything Pittsburgh Steelers news and updates. Also, like this video. Now, let's get right back into it. So, to start off, the Pittsburgh Steelers have elevated a player to the main roster, meaning that he is no longer on the practice squad, but he is on the 53-man roster now. And that player is tight end Ronnie Williams. So looking at Ronnie Williams, he spent the majority of the last 2 seasons on the Steelers practice squad, but now he gets elevated to the main roster. Looking at one of the reasons why he might have been elevated is because the Steelers are dealing with an injury at the tight end position right now for this week in McCole Pruitt. He's kind of dealing with that knee injury that bugged him towards the end of this last week's game against the Denver Broncos. And we all know the Pittsburgh Steelers love running multiple tight end sets, having 4 or 5 tight ends on the field at the same time. So you look at that, and the Pittsburgh Steelers, if he does miss this game, they are going to use Ronnie Williams in a tight end set, and he'll be ready to go. They could have just elevated him on game day and had him revert back to the practice squad after the game, but I guess they liked what he's been showing, and he's actually on the 53-man roster as of right now. 2 more things that have happened within the last 2 days are players going on injured reserve. The Pittsburgh Steelers have placed linebacker and special teams player Tyler Medikevich on the injured reserve list. And they've also placed wide receiver Ben Shornick on the injury reserve list as well. Both those players have played in the very first 2 games. One of them was actually on the 53-man roster, which opens up a spot for the Steelers to sign and elevate Ronnie Williams to the main roster. Tyler Medikevich was on the 53-man roster. Now he's injured. Will miss at least the next 4 weeks due to injury. And Ben Shornick, he also played in the first 2 games. He was actually elevated to the main roster on game day and then reverted back to the practice squad after the game, but he is now placed on injury reserve as well. And both these will impact the Steelers a lot because Tyler Medikevich was a really good special teams player. He didn't really see the field much in terms of inside linebacker and being on the team because of that reason, but he's on the team because of his special teams value that he brought. And that's why the Pittsburgh Steelers, even though they signed so late in the offseason in training camp and late in the preseason, he was still able to make this team because he is that veteran. He's been on the Steelers before, and he is a special teamser. And obviously, you look at this new rules that have applied on the special teams, and the Steelers wanted someone like that. So he will be missed. He's made some tackles so far on special teams, and he'll be missed. Looking at Ben, and in terms of him being missed, he will be missed as well. Even though he was the practice squad elevation on game day and he wasn't on the main roster, he still saw some time. He still saw the field, and he is really the 6th wide receiver. The Steelers only carried 5 receivers on the actual depth chart 53-man roster to start the season, but we all know the Steelers love running and having at least 6 usually in prior years. So he was the elevation on game day. Now it's going to be interesting to see who the Steelers elevate on game day at wide receiver because they usually have 6 on game day with elevations. So you look at the Pittsburgh Steelers, and these will affect them hugely moving into the next few weeks in terms of the little things that they do. So more than just that, the Pittsburgh Steelers have also signed players to their practice squad. They've actually returned, made a reunion with James Pierre. James Pierre is back after spending the training camp preseason with the Washington Commanders and then getting cut from them. So James Pierre is back. It seems like within the last few weeks, last few months, the Steelers have been making reunions with a lot of players. They just had a reunion with obviously Cameron Sutton this offseason. They had it with Terrell Edmonds just last week. And now James Pierre returns this week to the Steelers. So you look at this, and defensive back Deshaun Jameson was also signed to the practice squad as well. The Steelers have also signed tight end Matt Sokol and wide receiver Ray Jenkins to their practice squad. And in corresponding moves, they've terminated cornerback Zion Gilbert and wide receiver Shaquan Davis. And they are no longer on the practice squad. So that does it. Those are all the moves the Pittsburgh Steelers have made within the last few days. But now let me just go over each player individually. And I'm going to start back at the beginning with Ronnie Williams, because Ronnie Williams is on the 53-man roster. He was originally signed by the Denver Broncos as an undrafted free agent following the 2022 NFL draft, but then he was released during the preseason. Williams then, it seemed as though he's been on the Steelers forever. It feels as though Williams has always been on the Steelers and he just never seen the field. But hopefully now, with him actually maybe seeing the field because of Nicole Pruitt's injury, he's able to showcase some of the skills that he has. Because he was a receiving threat in college, where he played his ball at Tennessee Martin. He played in 53 games, starting 26. He finished with 99 receptions for 1,217 yards and 7 touchdowns. He finished his career ranked 9th in school history in receptions. So he hasn't really been able to show what he's capable of doing as a receiving threat or anything at the next level, because he's barely got the opportunity. But hopefully he could be more than just a blocking tight end for the Steelers if he is given any opportunity in the receiving game. So that's what to expect from Ronnie Williams. Now let's look at the other players the Pittsburgh Steelers have signed to their practice squad. So James Pierre, who was originally signed by the Steelers as an undrafted free agent following the 2020 NFL Draft out of Florida Atlantic. He played in 66 career games with 6 starts in 3 seasons. He had recorded 59 tackles, including 52 solo stops, 8 pass defense, 2 interceptions, and a forced fumble. He also has 35 special teams tackles. And the big thing with him, too, is the Pittsburgh Steelers have been missing a gunner in the punting game this season, because James Pierre was a really good gunner for the Steelers the past few seasons of him being on the team. So maybe he gets elevated on game day and he's used specifically for that gunner role on special teams. So that's something that he could impact the game on. And that's something that he's used to doing for the Steelers and something the Steelers coaches are used to him doing. So in 2021, James Pierre, he played in 17 games with 4 starts for the Steelers, recording 37 tackles, 34 of them solo stops, and had 1 interception. And that was really his big year in the NFL at the main level. So looking at the other players the Pittsburgh Steelers have signed, they've also signed Jameson. Jameson originally signed with the San Francisco 49ers as undrafted free agent following the 2023 NFL Draft. He was claimed off the waivers by Carolina Panthers and appeared in 15 games for the Panthers in 2023, last season starting 2 of them. He finished the season with 5 tackles, 3 of them solo stops, and 1 pass defense. So he is now a Pittsburgh Steeler after also playing college football at the University of Texas, where he appeared in 60 games, 40 starts, 139 tackles, 109 solo stops, 6 tackles for loss, 23 pass defense, 2 forced fumbles, 1 sack, and 1 forced fumble. So I'm just going to kind of give you some introductions to these players because they are new to the team, some of them. So might as well just give you a little bit of information about them, even though they're on the practice squad, just in case if maybe they do get elevated on game day and you see them on the field on game day. So there's 2 more that I'm going to just go over really quickly. Obviously, Trey Jenkins and Matt Sokol, they were on the practice squad before, but then they got released from it, but now they're back. I probably already told you a little bit about them, but let me just go through them a little bit again. Jenkins, he played at LSU, 43 games, starting 20. In 4 seasons, he finished with 89 receptions, 1,370 yards, and 14 touchdowns. He is a candidate to get kind of elevated on game day because Ben Shornick, like I said, was getting elevated on game day and actually playing in games. So someone at the wide receiver position will get elevated on game day from the practice squad, and maybe it is him. Who knows? So moving over to Sokol, the last player that was signed. He was signed by the Steelers during training camp and then released prior to the regular season. He originally signed with the Los Angeles Chargers from the 2019 NFL Draft, and he has spent time on the practice squad of the Chargers, Jaguars, Lions, Patriots, and also he spent time on the Chargers active roster. However, he doesn't have much experience at the NFL level in terms of playing in actual games. He does have experience in college, obviously, at Michigan State, where he played in 52 games, 31 receptions, 348 yards, and 2 touchdowns. So the Pittsburgh Steelers, they're going to miss Tyler Medikevich, they're going to miss Schnornek, but they signed these players, and hopefully they could help the burden of losing those guys. So, with that being said, those are all the moves the Pittsburgh Steelers have made within the last 2 days to their roster. Adding someone to the 53-man roster, placing 2 on injured reserve, which will now miss at least the next 4 games, and also signing 4 players to the practice squad and 1 kind of main reunion with a former player and someone who may actually see time on the football field. So anyway, let me know your thoughts down in the comments below on all these moves the Steelers have made within the last few days. Do you like any of them? Do you think they have any chance of actually impacting this team in any way in terms of special teams, defense, offense? Let me know your thoughts, and also let me know your thoughts down in the comments below on the injuries and how will they affect this team as well. Also, make sure you subscribe to the channel, turn notifications for everything Pittsburgh Steelers news, updates, highlights, analysis, reports, everything like that. I've covered entirely this offseason, and so far this regular season, I've covered entirely as well, and I'll continue doing so with highlights, analysis, reports, everything. So like, comment, subscribe, turn notifications, and I'll see you guys all later. Until next time, I'm out. Peace.